So what's going on for Oklahoma on the recruiting trail? It seems like things have been quiet as of recently, and you're probably correct there. Not a lot going on for Oklahoma, especially after they have the majority of their class already wrapped up. Sites are already being looked at for 2026, but there's still a couple targets here in 2025, mainly your big targets. And today we got to talk about where Oklahoma sits with those guys, especially as we're now in the month of August. Commitment dates, they're here. Oklahoma should be looking to heat up on the recruiting trail this month. And before we dive into Michael Fasusi, I think we got to start off with Christian Jones, the 4-star linebacker out of Omaha, Nebraska. And I think this one's been a little hard to follow, right? If you've been following Oklahoma recruiting this cycle, Christian Jones has been an interesting one. You've heard maybe he could lock it down soon, but then the decision day, it just feels like it keeps dragging on. It keeps dragging on. And if you're an Oklahoma fan, you start to tell yourself, this sounds like a Grant Bricks recruitment. This sounds like a recruitment that we're not going to win. Hence, look at what just happened with Cade Petchak. Things looked really well after his official visit with Oklahoma. A lot of people, including myself, believed he would end up here with the Sooners. And then he ends up committing to Nebraska. Now, the interesting thing here with Christian Jones is it is believed that he doesn't want to play for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. He wants to leave the state. But I'm also under the impression that this commitment, there's a good chance it could roll into the early parts of the season. And if Nebraska spurs off a 5 or a 6-game winning streak to start the season, I think in their first 7 games, they have a chance to be 7-0 before they go play Ohio State. They could land the 4-star pledges commitment, and Oklahoma could be left without a linebacker in this class. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to say, well, Nebraska winning, going 6-0 or 7-0 before they have to play Ohio State seems a little far stretched. Listen, Nebraska has a really easy schedule. Their toughest game is Colorado, and that's the second game of the season. So Nebraska has an opportunity. They even have an opportunity to even make a college football playoffs this year. Ohio State is their toughest game on the schedule, and it's not even close, with Colorado probably being their second best game. So you look at Christian Jones, checking the temperature there, talking to him. It does sound like it's going to be somewhere probably middle of the season, towards the end of his senior season before he makes the decision. Although you never know. Maybe BV and Zach Alley, if they show on the field some improvement with Danny Stutzman once more, it's hard to say that Danny Stutzman can improve a little bit more. Maybe get him into those Butkus talks. Maybe they can get Christian Jones to lock it down early. But, of course, the big fish that everybody wants to know about is, of course, the one and only Michael Fasusi, the 5-star offensive tackle. It's weird. On3 doesn't have him as a 5-star grade yet. They have him as the 32 overall ranked player in the country. But everywhere else, he's a consensus 5-star. He's probably the best left tackle in this class. And I think you're going to see that here in the coming days when you see Texas A&M and Texas really try to push the bag through the NIL to try to land Michael Fasusi. But I think the confidence has really remained strong on the Oklahoma side for them to be able to get his pledge. You're even starting to see a lot of Texas boards start to give the white flag, right? They're starting to concede and start to look at the 2026 offensive tackles and say, that's when we need to get somebody. Although they're potentially losing Kelvin Banks this year to the NFL draft in the first round. So they kind of need somebody to replace him now. Texas is going to be a heavy player in the transfer portal. Oklahoma might not have to be a super heavy player with the great class they had last year. And then if they can round it out with Michael Fasusi this year, you would feel really confident there. But Oklahoma is still looking good. Michael Fasusi is planning to announce his commitment on August 21st. This is a significant date for him. So always good news there. But we're kind of holding off on being like, hey, Oklahoma's landing this guy. I've predicted him to land here. I've been pretty confident in it. But we're going to hold off, be cautiously optimistic here. Things look really good for Oklahoma. You would rather be in the lead here. But like I said, A&M and Texas guys, they can come in with the bag. So don't give your hopes up just yet. But just know there's a lot of confidence there from the Oklahoma side. But then there's another 5-star offensive tackle Oklahoma's after, and that's Andrew Babalola. Now, I've talked to a couple people, and it's interesting here because Stanford is not the leader. And although the predictions have been in for Stanford, Stanford being the academic prestige they are, I think the Babalolas are really now being sold on the idea that he can be a first-round offensive lineman and he can make a lot of money in the NFL. And his ceiling, Andrew Babalola's ceiling, is really high. The question is, with everything that's going on up there in Ann Arbor, Michigan, can the Wolverines maintain or keep their lead for Andrew Babalola? You might be saying, what do you mean Michigan? Michigan has been the leader in this recruitment for a couple weeks now. I don't think that's any secret. Michigan's med program, really, really, really good. I will say this, Auburn's became a player, but I think Oklahoma is definitely a steady 2, maybe even, if you want to say Auburn a second, a third. But I don't think Michigan is the leader at this exact moment. I think it could be Auburn, but if it's not Auburn, it's Michigan. Oklahoma and Bill Bedenbaugh, though, they're kind of steadily staying in this race. They're just a quiet team that nobody's really talked about for Andrew Babalola, right? You're here in Stanford, Michigan, Auburn, but nobody's really talking about Oklahoma as a serious destination here. Oklahoma fans need to I just want you guys to be aware that this is still a possibility, especially if you don't land Michael Fusi. They're going to go all in for one of these 5-star offensive tackles, and he would be one of the last ones on the board. So Andrew Babalola, this is an interesting one. It's one that I think we just need to constantly keep checking the temperature for, seeing where it's at in Oklahoma's favor. But then if you land Fusi and you land Christian Jones, it feels like this class is over, right? It feels like Oklahoma's got everybody they want. And so I was talking to Jay and Coop about this the other day, and I said, Todd Bates and Brenton Venables were really good at going after somebody that they weren't necessarily pushing for, or it wasn't really known for what they were pushing for throughout the entire cycle, that they would try to go out there and flip or land a commitment for at the end of the cycle. And I was kind of looking at some of the prospects and say, well, who could that be? Because once they lock those two up, the whole staff can pretty much pursue whoever they want. If they want to try to go after some really big names in the 25 cycle just for giggles to see if they can land somebody, flip somebody, who would they go after? And the first person that I kind of looked at was the 5-star defensive tackle, Malik Ay, out of, I believe it's Opelika, Alabama, currently committed to Auburn. However, you check the temperature here in this recruitment. It feels like Auburn might lose his commitment. Now, where does Malik go? Is it going to be Ohio State? Will it be Tennessee? Will it be the Crimson Tide? Are they going to be able to flip Malik Ay? Actually, crazy enough, Alabama is not recruiting their state as well as they have before. But I know that this is one that Todd Bates, I feel like he's kind of lurking in the background because he's been lurking in the background before. Was potentially supposed to take a visit this spring, never got up here. But Todd Bates, he's really good at the relationships. If he can get Malik Ay on campus for one of the games, or heaven forbid, if Malik Ay is on campus for the Auburn-Oklahoma game in Jordan-Hare, maybe he sees the way Oklahoma plays and says, maybe I want to take a visit there. So checking the temperature here throughout the season, Malik Ay is somebody that I'm watching, not saying it's going to happen. But Oklahoma, I think, would like to take a 4th defensive lineman. And I know a lot of people right now are worried about Kamori Moore, one of the current defensive line commits. I don't think he's going to decommit at this time, although I think a lot of people are worried about him going to Nebraska because, well, his former head coach in high school, Jamar Mosey, who's a former OU player, is now one of the coaches at Nebraska. So we'll have to check. I don't think you're going to lose Kamori Moore, but we'll constantly check the temperature of Malik Ay, see where this defensive line room is going to land. But then you look at Xavier Gonu, and I know everybody saw him commit to Wisconsin the other day. I don't think this one's over. He's still trying to get on campus this season for a visit, potentially that Tennessee game, guys, really big weekend for Oklahoma football recruiting, especially in the 2026 cycle. Deuce Geralds, James Carrington, Brandon Arrington, Jaden O'Neal. There's a couple wide receivers going to be on campus. Mason James. The Tennessee game is going to be a really big recruiting weekend, but we'll talk about that one as we get a little bit closer. But Xavier Gonu is another one of those guys. He wants to get on campus for an OV. He's been talking to Bates, right? Again, Bates wants to take a fourth defensive lineman if they are there and if they are available. At this point, I think it's the question of, do you want to go all in on a 5-star guy, or do you just want to kind of go in for an easy flip? Ponu's not a guy that I think is going to start for you right away. He's not going to be a guy that I think gives you good rotational minutes right away. His ceiling's high, though. I think he's somebody that you can develop. Maybe down the road, he's a pretty good defensive lineman for you. Kind of like what we're seeing in Ashton Sanders or Marcus Strong from that 22 class as well. So then you look at the last one. And this one, I know everybody doesn't want to hear it. 5-star safety, Jonah Williams. Now, baseball is a huge factor here. He didn't get drafted in the MLB this year. But if he gets on campus for you, the question is, does he get drafted into Major League Baseball? Jonah Williams, he's set to commit on August 24th. I don't think wherever he commits on August 24th will be his final destination, or if it is his final destination, I don't think the recruitment's over on August 24th. And if Oklahoma had the lead that they had earlier in the spring, before everything went south there, if they can get him back on campus during the regular season for a game, I would imagine Brandon Hall and Brenton Venables could probably regain momentum in this recruitment, especially when you've got Skip Johnson on your side, who has been an exceptional pairing with Brenton Venables on the recruiting trail. So with Jonah Williams, I don't know if it's over. I think Oklahoma's chances are probably 5% or less here in this. But if you get him on campus, you're going to feel really good about where Oklahoma currently sits in that recruitment. So, guys, if you have not already, make sure you guys join the discussion. Jump down in the comments below. Give me your thoughts. And if you guys have not already, make sure you hit that like and you hit that subscribe button.